What's the ceiling for the Thunder?
Well, I mean, the sky's the limit because you got to remember something. With Houston being a formidable threat that they are, a lot can depend on the seedings. Let's say, for example, hypothetically, Max, that it's one of those situations where OKC ends up going up against Houston before they have to go against a Golden State because Houston's the 2 seed and Golden State's the 1 seed. But OKC ends up being the 3 seed instead of San Antonio. That can make things interesting because you remember they get to avoid the Warriors until the conference finals. And who knows what's going to happen in a particular situation like that. I do have questions about OKC's depth. I don't have too much of a question about their starting 5. I think their starting 5 can compete with anybody, even with Roberson going down, because the 4 that you still have left there, 3 of those guys are your primary offensive weapons, and Steven Adams can be a monster when he wants to be. And so when you look at it from that perspective and the fact that they can elevate their level of defensive play, and anybody at any given moment of the big 3 can explode, whether it's Paul George shooting 43% from three-point range, whether it's Carmelo Anthony taking a step back, only launching a little over 15 shots per game, but still being efficient enough. Russell Westbrook shooting nearly 45% from the field. You look at what they bring to the table offensively, and you know what they can do defensively. Again, the questions about their depth are a problem. But in the end, if you get to avoid Golden State until the conference finals, who knows what that could materialize into. So I look at it from the standpoint that Oklahoma City is capable of making noise against anybody because they're physical, they're rough and rugged, they come at you, and Russell Westbrook, I can't think of anybody who wants to go against Golden State more than this guy does. The fact that that's a reality makes things very intriguing. Of course, the Warriors are the favorites, but it makes it very, very intriguing, and I love the notion and the possibility of that, and I don't rule out anything right now.
So don't rule out anything. Would that include, meaning the ceiling is they could win a championship this year?
Yeah, I think the ceiling is that ceiling is they could win a championship. It's slim, but I'm not going to say zero. I'm not going to say zero.
Slim to none, and Slim just left the building. Listen, Stephen A., seeding is important here. It's absolutely important, and it's the reason that their ceiling is, in fact, the Western Conference Finals, but no further. Look, they're built for the playoffs. You look at the Rockets, you wonder, is that going to work in the playoffs? Not just because of the orthodoxy from years ago where, a bunch of jump shooters, it's not going to work. Because we all know it's still about the paint. And the Rockets got 2 guys who can get to the paint, which opens up the shooting, right? So it's just because someone's not, big isn't sitting there posting doesn't mean that it's still not about the paint. That's really, and they have guys who can do that. So I'm not saying we don't know if that's going to work in the playoffs. I mean that we see players on that team who have come up a little small compared to their normal levels of performance in the playoffs. And even in Chris Paul's case, when the numbers haven't been small, the team performance has. And as the leader of the team, I'm sure he accepts that responsibility, right? So, meantime, the Thunder are, their key players, their top 2 players are extremely athletic, not just elite performers in Westbrook and Paul George, but elite athletes, which I think does make a difference in the playoffs. And Carmelo Anthony, even if your game plan is make Carmelo beat you, all right, he might. Carmelo Anthony gets hot, he might beat you if that's the game that, So they are built for the playoffs in several ways, more than some of the other teams, particularly Houston, you would think on paper. In other words, their playoff record you would expect to be better than, or performance you'd expect to be more impressive than their regular season performance. Here's the problem, Stephen A. The seeding matters because they're not going to be a 1 or a 2 seed. I think we can agree on that, right? Therefore, in order to get to the finals, assuming health, like let's assume that no major team has a major catastrophic injury to a key player. Assuming health, they're going to have to upset both the Rockets and the Warriors, whoever they have to play for. That's not going to happen. Maybe they have an upset in them because it turns out that in the playoffs, they're more ready for that kind of game than, let's say, the Rockets, and I doubt it. I doubt they beat the Rockets, but let's say they do beat the Rockets. They ain't going to then turn around and upset the Warriors, too. It's just too much. They're going to have to get a little lucky to even beat one of those teams, and luck does not play that big a role in the NBA as it does in the NFL, Major League Baseball, and other major team sports. I don't see them with 2 best-of-7 upsets in them against demonstrably superior teams.